It is 1932, and teacher Virginia Curtis is on trial for the murder of Harold Campbell, the father of one of her students. The bloody crime scene at the Eno River implicates Virginia. Her attorney, James Patrick Nash, is a black man in the segregated South.
Up in the front.
Yes, I want to
sit up in the front.
Oh, I see three over there.
All right, let's sit up in the front.
Yeah.
Oh, she looks so pale.
So skinny, poor thing. There's hardly any meat on her bones.
Don't y'all be feeling sorry for that woman? She got her share of male attention when she came to town.
Does your husband know you're here, Willa, Sweeney?
Not exactly.
Well, my son, she's his teacher, said that since the killing, all she's been doing is coming to school teaching reading and arithmetic, just like nothing's happened.
It's hard to believe she could have done him in like that. He was a nice-looking man, but such a lug.
Hear ye, hear ye, all rise.
Oh my goodness.
Just as I say,
Hear ye, all rise. The Superior Court of Orange County, North Carolina is now in session. Judge Alfred Billings presiding. You may be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Bottoms, what is our case today?
Your Honor, today we are hearing the case of North Carolina versus Virginia Curtis, number 4-1932. She has been charged with second-degree murder in the death of Harold Campbell. She pleads not guilty to this charge.
But you know I'm not guilty.
Mr. Nash, I suggest you ask your client to sit down and be quiet, or I will have to hold her in contempt. Yes, Your Honor. Members of the jury, you have been duly sworn in and instructed. Now, the fate of this young woman is in your hands. Under the laws of the state of North Carolina, she is presumed to be innocent until you have heard all the facts and made your determination. Now, is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
not guilty. My eye, why, she's as guilty as can be. They say she acts all prim and proper, but after school she gets made up, lipstick and all. Then she goes down to James' pharmacy, sits on a stool, orders a chocolate soda, and hikes up her skirt for all to see.
Willa, we don't know all about that yet. She hasn't made a fuss about anything before this. And she's been teaching here 5 years, and all the kids seem to like her.
All I can say is she's a grown woman, and that soda jerk is just 16 years old.
Oh, Mrs. Sweeney, you're just jealous, isn't you?
There will be quiet in the courtroom. Mr. Prosecutor, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to pass judgment on the acts of Jenny Curtis, teacher, who lives in bungalows on West Orange Street. Now, she is charged with killing Mr. Harold Campbell on April 14th, 1932 by swinging a hatchet into the side of his head in an act of pure rage. Now, take a look. Take a look at Miss Virginia Curtis. She looks as sweet as a slice of pecan pie, but don't let that fool you. It's anything but. Charged with murder in the second degree. That is on the day in question. Miss Curtis may not have killed Mr. Campbell, but it was murder nonetheless. As the prosecution will prove, she had the weapon, the motive, and the opportunity. She must face justice for this heinous crime.
Mr. Mr. Nash.
Thank you, Your Honor. As my esteemed colleague so aptly put it, good people at Hillsborough, my client, Virginia Curtis, is guilty of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know her as a teacher. Many of you know her as a person that does good works in the community, especially in the colored district. We will prove today that the prosecution's case is full of errors, hearsay, and rumors. It will come to bear that my client, Virginia Curtis, is completely innocent of all charges.
Your Honor, waiting on my first witness. Is currently in the hospital. Be along shortly.
Well, let's move this along, please, Mr. Graham.
Yes, Your Honor.
I never. I mean, that Mr. Nash sure has a way about him. But, I mean, why is he defending her anyway? A colored man defending a white woman.
Of course she'd have him defend her. He's an old family friend. I hear she trusts him completely.
Well, my goodness, why?
My dad has said that after that horrible race ride in Wilmington, Nash's whole family went to Durham. Miss Curtis's father helped them. He's a real do-gooder, got him a place, arranged for the son to get an education up north.
Mr. Graham, please call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Prosecution calls Dr. J.T. Osborn.
Oh, Dr. Osborn, is he my doctor?
Not unless you did.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Please state your name and occupation.
Dr. J.T. Osborn, and I'm the coroner here in Orange
No,
County.
he's not my doctor.
I told you.
Dr. Osborn, was it your duty to examine the body of the deceased and determine the cause of his untimely demise?
Yes, it was.
Now, describe the circumstances surrounding your investigation.
On April 14th, Sheriff Everett B. Hosgood brought in the body of Harold Campbell, who was killed down at the river.
And did you write a report on what you saw?
I have it right here with me.
Now, before Dr. Osborn continues, I'd like to enter this coroner's report as evidence exhibit A.
No objection.
Ms. Osborn, please summarize your report for us.
Report of April 14th, 1932, examination conducted at 6:46 p.m. The deceased Harold Campbell presented with bruises on his legs, right about here, then a laceration on one of his arms. The victim's skull had a large gash on the right side of his head. Cause of death was traumatic injury to the brain caused by a severe blow to the head with a sharp object, exacerbated by the loss of blood.
Now, you mentioned fatal blow to the head. Could that blow be caused by something like a rock?
No, sir. No. A rock would have abraded the skin more. This weapon must have been something sharp. It certainly pierced the skin.
Would a hatchet fit that description?
Yes, it would.
You also mentioned fatal blows on the right side of Mr. Campbell's head. Does that mean the killer was in fact left-handed?
Well, it's a possibility, of course. Depends on which way they were standing. I couldn't really say one way or the other.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may question this witness, Mr. Nash.
Mr. Osborn, did you notice any marks on Mr. Campbell's body that would make you think that he'd been in a fight? That would be Dr. Osborn to you. As I mentioned, the bruises on his legs, the bruises would be consistent with a fight, yes. But I can't say for sure whether the bruises happened at the same time. Thank you,
Mr. Osborn.
You may step down, Dr. Osborn. Mr. Gray, please call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Sheriff Hosgood.
Sheriff. He's a good-looking man. Tall, drinking water.
Hey, Sheriff.
I wouldn't mind getting arrested by him.
All right. You're switching it up on me. Oh, you know what to do. All right, you ready? All right. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. All right.
Please tell us your name and occupation, Sheriff.
I'm Everett P. Hosgood, Sheriff of this here town.
Sheriff Hosgood, describe what you saw on the day of the murder.
On the afternoon of April 14, I was walking down Churton and had just passed Margaret Lane when I see Mayor Tyler coming up towards me, and he calls out saying, "Hosgood, we got ourselves a situation." So I caught up to him, and he told me to follow him down toward the Eno. Now, I know that a lot of Negro folk live over there, but I didn't quite know what I was getting into. So we got down there right quick, and there was Harold Campbell just laying there with his head split open, and Miss Curtis was just standing there over him.
You and the mayor, y'all ran right up to him.
I took it slow. Once we saw the scene, Mayor Tyler kind of held back, and I approached the body.
Did you check to see if he was still alive?
Oh, he was dead all right.
How was that body laying?
He was kind of on his side with one hand out like he was reaching for something or someone.
Prosecution would like to enter in this hatchet as evidence, Exhibit B.
No objection.
Sheriff, was this the hatchet you saw at the scene of the crime?
Yes, sir, looks like it. Most of them all look the same, but I put that tag on it there at the scene, so pretty sure it's the one.
You checked the fingerprints?
When I got back at the station, we did find some prints on it. With all the blood, it was a bit of a mess, but the prints we did determine to be Miss Curtis's.
And when you saw Miss Jenny Curtis, how did she look, and what questions did you ask her?
Well, she just stood there staring kind of blankly, staring down at Harold. Oh yes, there was mighty lots of blood on her, on him, and on the hatchet on the ground. Why, there were blood splatters on her dress. Funny thing though, with all that blood, there weren't none there on her hands.
And what did you surmise from that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Sheriff Hosgood, with that in mind, is this the dress that you saw Jenny Curtis wearing on the day of the murder?
That's right, I took that from her at the jail.
Prosecution would like to enter in this dress as evidence, Exhibit C.
No objection.
Sheriff, I think kindly those are all my questions.
Your questions, Mr. Nash.
Sheriff, you said the hatchet looked like the one you found at the murder scene. Could it possibly be the same one?
Well, we'll try and keep the evidence locked up, but maybe if somebody needed to chop down a small tree or something like that, well, maybe somebody would have borrowed it. But I'm pretty darn sure that's the one I found.
So you mentioned finding fingerprints on the tool. Were there fingerprints from anyone else besides Miss Curtis?
There were some prints that were kind of blurry, couldn't quite read them, but may have just been more of hers.
Well, you said there wasn't any blood on Miss Curtis's hands. How could that be, with the blood on the hatchet handle?
I know, it worked kind of odd. It was almost like she had stepped in the blood since it were there on her shoes and at the bottom of her dress.
Well, you said earlier that there was blood splattered on the dress, and you said there was blood on the bottom of the dress. Which is it?
Well, maybe I was misremembering earlier. I just thought it was kind of funny with all that blood that it wasn't on her hands.
Sheriff, look at this dress and tell me where you see blood found on it.
I see blood along the bottom, I guess what you call the hemline.
That's right.
But you don't see blood all over the dress, do you?
No, sir.
Can that mean that she hadn't touched the hatchet?
Objection, legal witness.
Which he is allowed to do under cross-examination, Mr. Graham.
Well, let me put it this way. Where did you find blood on the hatchet?
Hard to say. It was kind of smeary all around.
So, no blood on her hands, but blood on the hatchet. How can that be?
Well, she might have wiped her hands or something.
But you don't know that, do you? Did you see any bloody rags or cloths lying around?
No, sir.
Did you see anyone else around, like an adult or a child?
Not that I can reckon. Harold's boy, Sonny, I saw coming up from the river, but I yelled at him to go home. I didn't want him to see his father.
And where did you see Sonny coming from?
Back from down under the bridge. Kids like to go dipping in the river down there. I didn't get a real close look at him.
And can you describe the scene for us a bit more?
Harold were laying there about 50 yards from the water, right in front of that old shack down there. Down towards the water, there's lots of bushes and weeds, but around the shack, it's mostly dirt and a few wildflowers. And the railroad bridge is just a few yards away. It's kind of isolated.
And when you saw Miss Curtis standing there, did she say what happened?
She just stood there like she didn't know where she was. But when I got her back to the jail, she did give a statement.
And what did she say happened?
Well, she said she was down there fixing up that old shack when along comes Sonny and Mrs. Tyler. Then Harold shows up all stomping mad when he sees Sonny there. And they get into it, and he's in such a fit that, well, Sonny and Mrs. Tyler got out of there real quick. And she said that he grabbed her and she got away from him and went to hide in the shack. And she said she was scared to come out, but when she did, Harold were laying there on the ground, and it wasn't long after that before I showed up.
Now, did Miss Curtis say if there was anyone else outside the cabin except Mr. Campbell?
No one else.
Now, Sheriff, how tall do you think Miss Curtis is?
I guess a little over 5 feet. She's a little one.
And how much do you think she weighs?
I don't know much about women's weight, but maybe 90 pounds soaking wet.
90 pounds? I'd like for him to guess my weight.
So, Sheriff, how much do you think this hatchet weighs? How hard would you think a woman that's 5 feet tall, weighs 90 pounds, soaking wet, can have enough strength to lift that hatchet above her head and hit a man the size of Mr. Campbell in the back of his head?
Well, I got a nephew about the size of her, can hit a baseball across a cornfield, so it can't be that hard.
Well, where did the hatchet come from? Do you know who owned it?
It looks pretty used. I guess it came from the shack there.
Well, you testified that Miss Curtis told you she was in the shack when it happened. But you never went in the shack to see if there was anybody else in there, did you?
No, sir. That shack is pretty small. If someone else were in there, I would have heard them.
So, the killer could have still been in the shack.
Objection. Curtis' statement never mentioned anyone else in that shack.
Sustained, Mr. Nash. Please suspend these types of questions.
Sheriff, have you ever had the occasion to have Miss Curtis or Mr. Campbell in your jail in the past?
Miss Curtis? No, but Harold Campbell, he did like his drink.
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me rephrase the question. Sheriff, have you ever had Harold Campbell in your jail in the past?
Yes, sir.
For what? For drinking, fighting, beating his family?
Objection. Campbell ain't on trial. Furthermore, he is a victim.
Sustained, Mr. Nash. Please refrain from this line of questioning.
Your Honor, I want to show that Mr. Campbell's past actions with the law might have some bearing on what happened to him that day. Sheriff.
Proceed carefully.
Sheriff, do you think that Mr. Campbell could have had an altercation with someone else that day except Miss Curtis?
Lots of things are possible, I suppose.
Thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Prosecutor.
Your Honor, I call Mayor Arthur Tyler.
Shaking somebody's hand out there.
And Delilah.
Hi, lady.
Hey.
Good to see ya.
Good to see you.
That old wind day.
You saw him on his walk the other day, stopping to shake everybody's hand on the street. What? You know, if there was a baby around, he would have kissed it. With all that walking around he does, when does he get any work done?
Doris, you stop it. You know you voted for him too.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Mayor, please state your name and occupation.
I am Arthur Tyler. I have been mayor of this here town for 8 years now.
Mr. Mayor, we heard that you were the one who first told Sheriff Hosgood that a crime had been committed. Now, how did that come about?
Well, as many of the good citizens of Hillsborough can tell you, I make it a habit of taking the long way around when I leave my office in the afternoon and walk home.
Now, why do you do that?
Well, naturally, it gives me a chance to keep tabs on the various parts of the town, and is a healthy pastime besides.
On the afternoon of April 14th, where take your Constitution?
It was a nice spring afternoon, so I took myself down by the Eno. I was approaching the bridge, looked down toward the water, saw that little shack Miss Curtis is working on. Not too far from it, I saw a man on his side with his head in a puddle of blood.
Were you close enough to identify that man as being Harold Campbell?
I couldn't see his face from where I was. He was lying there, still as death. Still, I figured the safest thing would be to get Hosgood on the scene as fast as I could.
Were you in fear yourself?
Well, not knowing who the murderer was or where the murderer was, I was pretty nervous, you could say.
And did you notice anyone running away from the scene of the crime?
Just me. I mean, of course. After I saw the body when I was running to get the sheriff.
What is your relation to the deceased?
He's just a citizen of our town. I barely knew the man.
Mr. Matt, tell me, did the sheriff take your fingerprints at the scene?
Naturally, I would have supplied my fingerprints, and I still will, but Hosgood said he didn't need them.
Didn't need them. No further question, huh?
Mr. Nash, you may question the mayor.
So, Mayor Tyler, I know that coming up on a crime scene can make a man kind of nervous, as you said. So, tell me, did you recall seeing anyone else there at the crime scene? Did you see Miss Curtis?
If she was there, I didn't see her.
If you saw a man down from what you thought was an accident, possibly a murder, did you see a weapon?
I didn't see the big gash in the side of his head until Hosgood was there. I didn't know what had happened to him.
So,
you're right, it could have been an accident, but I just decided I wasn't going to be able to help him.
So, did you stop to talk to anyone or see anybody in particular on your way down to the Eno?
Stopped at the drug counter and had a Coke. You can ask Allie Miller. He's the one who poured it for me.
So, let's be clear about this. At no time did you see Miss Curtis or Mr. Campbell in any act of violence on that day or any day in the past?
No, I can't say that I did.
Thank you. No more questions right now.
You may take your seat, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Judge.
Next witness.
Prosecution calls Maevis Greene.
I like that Maevis. She says,
Hi, Maevis.
hey, Maevis.
Maevis.
Maevis. Maevis.
Put your hand down.
Well,
Left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
One. May be seated.
Please state your name and tell us what you do.
I'm Mavis Greene. I'm the owner of the bungalow where Miss Curtis lives. She's out at the back of my property.
Miss Greene, you do me the pleasure of telling what you saw on the day of the murder.
Oh, yeah, well, Miss Curtis came home from teaching school about, I'd say about 2:30. I saw her carrying out a bunch of tools outside, and that's when she hollered up to me that she was going to take them down to that shack down by the Eno. You know, she's fixing it up. It's where she helps them colored kids after school. I mean, they got their own school and everything, but she just likes to help them sometimes. I think she'd do about anything to help those kids, but I just don't think it's right, her going down there where they live.
How long has Miss Curtis lived on your property?
Well, about 5 years ever since she came here.
And over the course of those 5 years, you ever heard her causing any trouble, ruckus, loud noises, raising her voice, anything like that?
Maybe just a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. And, well, the last time was when that man, that Harold Campbell, he came sniffing around here just before Easter. And he went up to her door and knocked. And she answered. He said something to her. It looked like he was going to push her in. And she held her ground, which is saying something, seeing how small she is. But I just wonder if there wasn't somebody else inside that house with her. Because he looked in and kind of backed away, and she was a mite flushed.
Was someone there with her?
Well, not that I could actually see. She didn't have that many visitors anyway.
Those are all my questions, John.
You may step down. Bring after the defense questions you.
Miss Greene, you said that you noticed 2 or 3 times of Miss Curtis getting angry in the past. Did she ever get angry at you?
At me? Oh, no, sir. No, not me. But I tell you, that Sonny used to come around, son, looking for help with his schooling. He's not the brightest bulb. And he's a bully. Oh, my stars, that child bullies those other children, especially the ones down by that mill village. But when he gets around her, he gets all calm, almost gentle-like. It's always a surprise, seeing how he's usually such a mean one. But this other time, Sonny's daddy came around there and found him with her. And he was raising Cain. I tell you, Harold Campbell was not at all happy to see his son there with her. He yelled and called him names. He pulled him right on out of there by his ear.
Did she get angry with him?
Well, not that I saw, but I was just peeking out my window, so I had a hard time really hearing much of anything.
So on the day of the incident, did you notice Sonny around her house?
No, I did not.
Thank you, Miss Greene. No more questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Greene. I told you you were going to sit down. Next witness.
Your Honor, prosecution calls Mrs. Harold Campbell.
oh, the poor thing. Oh, her husband dead, and now she has to listen to all these gory details. Oh, it's just plain cruel. We should take her a casserole.
Left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Right. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, you need to say, I do.
Oh, I do.
All right, perfect. You may be seated.
Mrs. Campbell, would you please tell us your name and what you do?
My name is Harold Campbell. I live at 113 Nash Street in Hillsboro. I take care of my son. Ain't nothing much else.
Miss Campbell, we appreciate you being here today. Understand it must be very, very hard on you. Sheriff said that you've only been in town for about a year. So tell me, why'd y'all come here?
Well, Harold was from here. He went to school and all. He ain't a violent man. He seemed really popular. And people wrote nice things about him here. I brought his yearbook. Can I read something from it?
Well, I'm sure that would be just fine.
Objection. That document is over 20 years old and it hasn't been entered into evidence yet.
One more, just a quick second. Prosecution would like to enter this yearbook as evidence, Exhibit D.
No objection. I just want to make sure we're going by the law.
Now, Miss Campbell, go right here. You read whatever you want.
I appreciate
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
Well, here it says, Harold, heart of gold. And another friend wrote, faithful and true in all that you do.
Sounds like your husband was right popular. Tell me, why did he leave? Why'd y'all come back?
Well, he left because he said that people weren't just treating him right. I met him in Blacksburg, Virginia. That's where I'm from. And the Depression hit us pretty hard. So when he found out they were hiring at the mill, he came back here. It was a good job. We liked it here. At least I did. It's a bit warmer here than back in the mountain we're from.
Please describe what you saw for us on the day your husband was killed. On the day of the incident.
Well, Sonny and me were at the house. The school was over and he was having a terrible time doing his figures. I thought Harold was down at the mill and I was fixing supper.
Now, Miss Campbell, I understand this was very, very hard on you, but did you see your husband at any point that afternoon?
No, sir, I often don't see him during the day and sometimes at night. He likes to play cards with his friends. Joke, you know?
Where were you when you found out about your husband?
Well, I was in the storeroom holding taters, and Sonny, he run in, and he was crying. He was yelling, my daddy's dead, my daddy's dead, and I thought he was trying out some bad joke, because him and his pa sometimes get in arguments and they talk to each other like that, but he never meant it before.
Go on, what else?
Well, I pulled him to me on warm days like that. He was want to go swimming, and he was wet, and his shirt was torn, and he just wouldn't stop crying. And then he told me that he saw his paw down by the Eno line on the ground, and the sheriff was there. I didn't know what to do. I was going to go down there, but Sonny, he said no. He pleaded with me to stay. It was horrible. So I sat with him, and the sheriff, he come around about 25 minutes later, and he told me, well, it was a shock, I'll tell you that. With him going, I don't know what we're going to do now.
Campbell, I am so very sorry for your loss.
Mr. Nash, you may question Willa Campbell.
Mrs. Campbell, I am very sorry for your loss as well. You need a moment to compose yourself.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Mrs. Campbell, how long were you and Mr. Campbell married?
15 years in May.
And was Sonny your only child?
Yes, the good Lord decided on just that one, but he's a good boy. He's a marvel to me.
Well, you said that day that you were at home doing your housework and Sonny was doing his schoolwork. When did you notice him leaving to go down to the Eno?
About 3. I thought he was going to play in that river for a spell, but he said he wanted to go see Miss Curtis. She helps him with his figures.
And why is that?
She likes to help the children, but the mister, he don't want Sonny associating with those colored she teaches. And once she came by to talk to us about Sonny, and they had a terrible argument. Her saying that we oughtn't be so hard on Sonny, give him time to let him get his learning right. But Mr. Campbell, he ain't much for school, and he had it all worked out. Sonny was going to drive a truck for the mill just like he didn't need no figuring for that, and then they went back and forth about that. And he was getting angrier and angrier. And he told her off. He said Sonny was his son, and he would do with her as he pleased. And then after that, Miss Curtis just blessed my husband out. She had blood in her eye, that's for sure.
And
I ain't never seen nothing like it.
And when did the argument occur?
A few days before he died.
And did Sonny want to work in the mill? Did he want to drive a truck?
No, not much. He said Miss Curtis had told him all about how education was important. It could take you out of this here town to places like Wilmington even. He ain't a good learner, but he said he don't want to grow up like his pa, drinking and playing cards and all, and that's why he got so upset that day. It weren't just about the figures. I had to tell him that Mr. Campbell had arranged for him to start at the mill on Monday. He said he was going to go tell the teacher that day, get Sonny out of her clutches, was how he put it.
And what did Sonny say to that?
Oh, he was angry. He said he was going to get even with his pa, and he weren't going to let it happen anymore.
And what was it, Mrs. Campbell?
The yelling. His pa was always telling him he was stupid and he couldn't hold common thought in his head. Maybe Mr. Campbell was hard on him sometimes, but he loved him. He loved his boy.
Mrs. Campbell, I have one more hard question for you. I'm so sorry. So you said that when Sonny came back from the river, his hair and his clothes were wet. Did you notice if he washed anything out of them?
Objection.
Sustained. The jury will ignore that question.
I'll rephrase the question. Mrs. Campbell, remember, you're still under oath. When Sonny came back from the river, did you wash his clothes that day?
Yes, sir.
When you washed his clothes, did you notice any blood in the rinse water?
I don't know.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Mrs. Campbell, you may take a seat. Next witness, please, Mr. Graham.
Prosecution calls Mr. Simon Cates.
Mr. Cates.
There he comes. Okay.
Sweet man.
Hey, Mr. K.
Hey, Mr. K.
Hey, ladies. Word around
downtown, Miss Teresa, says you got a gas leak.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that's embarrassing. Bless your heart. I got some of those hardy little liver pills that'll get that leak.
Oh,
Right.
Mr. Keats.
Other hand, sir. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you may be seated.
Please state your name and tell us what you do.
My name is Simon Cates, and I own the James Pharmacy down on Churton Street.
Mr. Case, have you any opportunity to see Virginia Curtis in your store?
Why, yes, Miss Curtis is a right regular customer. Come in once or twice a week to buy something or just to look around. Sometimes she goes to the soda counter. I know she's a teacher, so I figure she just needs a little rest from them kids every now and then.
And on the day in question, you see either Virginia Curtis or Harold Campbell in your store?
Yes, Miss Curtis come around lunchtime to buy some shampoo and what all, and then he come in, went right up to her and started talking to her. You know, he was kind of head up, if you know what I mean, arms waving and all that kind of stuff. And then she left. I guess she just had to go back to school.
Oh, you say the two of them might have been arguing?
Well...
Objection, leading the witness.
Sustained.
All my questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Nash.
Mr. Cates, have you ever noticed Miss Curtis and Mr. Campbell at the same in the pharmacy together at the same time in the past? Do they seem friendly together?
Well, I wouldn't say they was ever in the store together. I mean, Miss Curtis might be in there, and then he come in and, you know, just, I don't know, didn't really say much, just, and left, and, well.
So, would you say that these attentions were accepted or invited?
Well, Miss Curtis is a lady. I mean, she don't say nothing. She just minds business what she's doing and leaves. Mm-hmm.
On the day in question, how did Miss Curtis behave when Mr. Campbell accosted her?
Objection.
Sustained.
I'll rephrase the question. On the day in question, how did Miss Curtis behave when Mr. Campbell approached her?
Well, I mean, he was kind of pushy. I almost went over to her and asked if anything was wrong, and she looked kind of afraid and then backed away and left. I did ask her if she was all right. She didn't say nothing, kind of teary-eyed. But then again, you could tell she was mad, too. You almost see steam coming out of her ears.
Thank you. No further questions.
You may step down, Mr. Cates. Mr. Prosecutor, your next witness.
I call Sonny Campbell.
Oh, what a shame, that poor boy, to lose his father. Now he has to testify.
Look at the size of that kid. I bet he gets his way in the schoolyard.
Oh, well, my daughter says that he could be a bully to some of the smaller children.
You swore to tell the truth.
Apple
the whole
doesn't
truth,
fall
and nothing
very
but the
far from the tree, does it?
Sonny, please tell us your name and occupation.
Sonny Campbel. I don't have no occupation except maybe going to school.
Sonny, please describe your relation to the deceased.
It was my pa got killed.
Sonny, we heard from your mama that you needed some help with your schooling on the day that your dad was killed. So you went to go and see Miss Virginia Curtis, is that right?
Yes, I figured I'd head down to the shack and sit outside if the weather was nice and get Miss Curtis to help us kids with some schoolwork.
Son, I know this must be hard on you, but loved your daddy, didn't you?
No, he was my pa. He liked to say he just wanted the best for me. He made sure we had a house and all.
You was fortunate enough not to see what Jenny Curtis did to your daddy, is that right?
Objection. Sustained.
So you did not witness Jenny Curtis striking your father, is that right?
That's true, sir.
Sheriff said it's coming from the Eno.
Yes, sir. Like Ma said, it's a hot day, and I figured I'd go down to the Eno to cool off. I even thought about not going to the shack and just going to the Eno instead. I suppose if I had, my pa would still be alive.
Now, why would you say that?
Well, I just meant that if pa had got down there, I ain't never showed up, he wouldn't have gotten so mad.
Your daddy didn't want you being there. Was he afraid of Miss Curtis's influence on you?
Well, Ma told me he's gonna make me work at the mill.
Let's see if we can understand the timing here. Your daddy came after you arrived.
Me and Miss Tyler, that's right, she walked with me.
Now, why would the mayor's wife do that?
Well, the mayor's wife came up like she was heading for the shack, and I was heading in the same direction. She said it'd be nice to have somebody walk with her, a male escort. She's the mayor's wife, so I suppose I better do it. She even called me a little gentleman.
Gentleman? What happened next?
Well, Paul shows up like maybe he were heading toward the Eno and saw me heading in the same direction. I can tell he's in a bad mood, pretty mad at me. Told me to go on home and said he needed to talk to Miss Curtis. They started into each other, and I left. And Miss Tyler left too. She was scared.
You took this opportunity to go swimming. Next thing you know, you see your daddy laying down dead.
Objection. He didn't say he saw him laying down. Dead.
Sustained.
Yo, man, tell us what you saw.
Well, I was going to go back and get my math book, but the sheriff was waving at me to stay away. From what I could tell, my pa was lying on the ground, not moving. So I wanted to run home and tell Ma that I thought he was dead.
How much time passed between when you saw your daddy alive, when you saw your daddy dead?
Could have been 10, 15 minutes.
10, 15 minutes. So thank you. That's all my questions, John.
Right ahead, Mr. Nash.
So, Sonny, you said that when you came up on your father's body, the sheriff told you to go home to see your mom. So why didn't you go up to try to see how he was doing?
Well, I was scared. He was my pa, and somebody knocked him to the ground, so I wanted to run home and tell Ma that I thought he was dead.
Well, you just told us that Miss Curtis and your father were arguing each other. Didn't she seem afraid?
That's true.
Well, your father was a good-sized man. Was she afraid of him?
Objection. Witness being asked to speculate on emotions.
Sustained.
Did she say anything to indicate that she was scared?
Well, not that I recall. She just didn't want to be in there. She's normally a very nice lady. She never yelled at any of us.
So where was Mrs. Tyler when the yelling started?
Oh, she left, like she was scared or mad.
Well, after you left to go swimming, did you notice if your father and Miss Curtis were getting physical? Did he get violent with her?
No, sir. I didn't see anything like that when I went down to the river.
Well, when they were arguing, did you notice if she picked up the hatchet or any other weapon?
No.
While you were swimming, did you hear any cries or loud noises in the distance?
No, sir. The river's kind of noisy. I did say I went down to the river, didn't I? How could I have heard anything?
Did you ever argue with your father?
I think most boys find something to argue with their pa about. He contained himself pretty well as long as he weren't drinking.
And what if he were drinking?
I might catch it pretty hard then.
Do you know if he'd been drinking the day that he was killed?
No, sir. I weren't with him until he showed up at the river.
But to use your phrase, he wasn't containing himself very well that day.
No, sir. He weren't.
Thank you. No more questions.
Sonny, you may leave the stand. Son, I want you to go sit with your mother. I'm sure she could use you right now. Next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Miss Arthur Tyler.
You know, I never liked that Virginia Curtis woman. Always acting so uppity. You know, one time I wrote a note excusing my Jenny from school because of a cold, and she had the nerve to send it back with corrections.
I think she's quite a nice person. My Gladys thinks the world of her.
Well, I heard she had a run-in with Miss Tyler over the garden.
Do you swear to tell the truth?
Tell, though I can't think of what. Delilah never has a bad word for anyone.
Oh, not in so many words, but you just watch Ms. Mayo's eyes. She'll say something really nice, but but you just watch your eyes. She means something very different.
Order, would you ladies please quit your gossiping? Sorry. Mrs. Mayor, please state your name and tell us what you do.
I'm Delilah Tyler, Mrs. Arthur Tyler, wife of our very fine mayor, whom you have twice elected, and we thank you so very much for that.
Sorry. I didn't vote for the rascal.
Oh, Mrs. Tyler, how do you know Virginia Curtis? She a friend of yours?
Yes, we're friends.
Well, how do you know her specifically? From school? Is she a teacher of your child?
Arthur and I have no children. It was the garden club. I'm the president of the garden club, of course. And she, Miss Curtis, was applying to be a member of the garden club. But, you know, anyone could see she couldn't hold up her end.
So y'all are friends. It must be hard testifying against a friend.
Of course it's hard.
Now, please describe what you saw on the afternoon of April 14th.
I was at James' Pharmacy and picking up some pills for my husband, the mayor. And Simon Cates came and told me all about this altercation between Miss Curtis and Mr. Campbell. It sounded like they were really going at it. Mr. Cates said that she flew out of his store like there were demons snapping at her heels.
Objection. Hearsay.
It goes to motive.
I'll allow it. Please go on, Mrs. Mayor.
Well, now, I figured that after a disturbing incident like that Miss Curtis would go down to the Eno. There's a little shack down there where she goes sometimes after school, a couple times a week, to tutor some of the backward young'uns. And I thought I would go see if she was there and see if she was all right.
That seems like a right neighborly thing to do. Did you go there alone?
I saw Sonny on the way, and he seemed a bit upset. So I asked him to escort me down to where Miss Curtis would be on the Eno. You know, you never know what's lurking down there by the Eno.
I'd say so. What else? Go on.
Oh, well, she was there, and she was surprised that I knew about the altercation at the pharmacy. She said she didn't want to talk about it, and I said, well, I just wanted to see if she was all right, you know. She said she didn't like to argue with people, but she admitted sometimes she has a bit of a temper. And I'll say there's nobody that brought out that temper more than Mr. Harold Campbell.
Objection.
Sustained. Mrs. Mayor, just please report the known facts.
Tell us what you saw, Chella.
Well, it looked like she was working on it, you know, fixing it up. Though what she wants to do with that shack is a mystery to me. It belongs to us, I mean, to the town, not her.
How did you know she was fixing it up?
Well, there were tools, you know, like menus. They were laid out on the ground. There was a saw and some nails and that hatchet right there and hammers and things like that. And she had them all laid out like she was going to use them herself to fix the place up. That's kind of forward for a woman, don't you think?
I'd say so. What happened then?
Well, Mr. Campbell came up and he started yelling. And he looked over and he saw Sonny. And he grabbed Sonny by the shirt and he started boxing his ears and shaking him. And Sonny started wailing. And he looked like he was going to try to hit him back. Mr. Campbell said, I don't want you associating with Miss Curtis or those coloreds anymore. And after Monday, it won't matter because you're going to be starting at the mill and working there. And he said, he shoved him toward the river and said, go cool off.
So, the only three people in that shack, Sonny, Virginia Curtis, and Mr. Harold Campbell.
That's right.
No further questions.
Your turn, Mr. Nash.
So, Mrs. Tyler, you say that you like Miss Curtis a lot. You wouldn't say anything to deliberately hurt her now, would you?
on in this town just fine. It's our Christian duty to be charitable to our fellow men.
But isn't it true that you don't like Miss Curtis? That you tried to get her fired from her job as a teacher? Please tell us what the true nature of your relationship is with Miss Curtis.
Well, now, like I said, we're friendly. We know each other from the garden club. She applied to the garden club, and, well, I'm sorry to say, but she didn't quite measure up. I mean, everyone knows that the members of the garden club are required to help beautify the town. And she doesn't even own any property.
So she didn't qualify for the garden club?
That's right. That's right. Because everyone is supposed to help with the beautification of the town, then she would need some property to work with. Well, you're also, in order to be a member of the garden club, you need to have means. Means and taste and certain standing in Hillsborough. So she doesn't quite measure up. After all, she rents rooms in that bungalow behind Maevis Greene's house. And, well, even if Maevis Greene gave us some property to work with, that ground is all wrong for flowers.
Well, besides the gardening, how well do you know her to believe that she'd be innocent?
My husband, the mayor, says that justice must be done. Now, he says Miss Curtis has been trying to do some good things by working with the kids and helping them out with their schooling. But she's also working on that shack. Who knows what else she wants to do with that shack?
So, what made it your business to go down there? I mean, a person of your status going down to a shack at the river without your husband was just a young boy for protection?
Like I said before, I was concerned for her.
Well, when you went there, did you see Mr. Campbell there? How did he react when he saw you?
Well, he didn't. He didn't seem like he even saw me.
And what else happened?
Well, he came down and he started yelling at Sonny and Miss Curtis. And Miss Curtis just looked awful mad about it.
And what did you do when all this was happening?
Well, when he was yelling at Sonny, I felt like Sonny's his boy. It's not my place to interfere with the father's discipline. So I walked on back to town. But Miss Curtis, she was mad.
And what did you do then?
Well, I felt like it was best that, she's more his kind than my kind, and we don't run in the same social circles, so I just left.
So, you left Miss Curtis there alone with a man getting angry to do God knows what. No more questions, John.
Seemed like the best at the time.
Will you be interested in questioning this witness later?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe I would like to call her later.
All righty. Mrs. Mayor, you may step down, but if you would, please don't leave the courtroom.
Thanks.
Mr. Prosecutor, I hope this is going to be close to wrapping it up for your witnesses.
My last witness, Your Honor. I call Mr. James Hoffman.
That husband of hers is on the mayor. Always saying the right thing, always doing the right thing, just before re-election. Perfect timing.
Oh, Willa, you don't like anyone, do you? No wonder your husband puts up with you.
Now, do you think that Virginia Curtis, is she using that shack as a love nest?
state your name and tell us what you do?
My name is James Hoffman, and I sell insurance in Durham, where I live.
Mr. Hoffman, please describe your relation to defendant Virginia Curtis.
Why, she used to be my fiancée.
You say you used to be. What happened? Y'all no longer engaged?
No, sir. Not after I saw her true colors.
Why, Mr. Hoffman, whatever do you mean by that?
We've been good together for about a year, and then I asked her to marry me. Her family's pretty well known in Durham. Her father owns a big car dealership and, sell insurance, so I figured it'd be a good deal for me, business-wise. Man, she's pretty and nice, and so I figured it'd be good elsewise, too.
So, why didn't break up?
Sir, she hit me. There's no way in the world a woman's gonna hit James Thomas Hoffman and get away with it.
She hit you? She ever hit you with anything?
Oh, Lord, no. But once was enough. I wasn't gonna put up with that. A woman is on the earth for the command of the man. That's what it says in the Bible, and that's what I believe.
No further questions.
Mr. Nash?
Mr. Hoffman, so you say you sell insurance in Durham? So, how's business?
Not as good as I'd hoped. After Virginia and me broke up, I hadn't been getting as many referrals from her father as I used to.
So, you're testifying today you want to get back at her, maybe for revenge?
Objection.
Mr. Nash, you do not have to answer that question. Sustained.
So, let's get back to the day it happened, when she supposedly hit you. Why did she hit you? Were you arguing? What caused her to do that?
We were talking about where we were going to live after we got married. I wanted to live with her folks because they have a nice big house. Her dad was going to give us a new Oldsmobile for a wedding gift. She didn't want any of it. Strange woman. Had everything she wanted her whole entire life, but wanted us to start out small, out on our own. Said she wanted to continue teaching. Said she wanted to help the colored folks after the way they were treated by the white folks. As if she wasn't white herself. I told her she couldn't work. Told her it wasn't the right place for a woman helping people your kind. Anyway, some of my friends, they don't like coloreds none. Telling me I needed to take a stand. So I told her to mind me and do what I say. Even though she had a little college and I didn't, I was the man of the family. She made me feel right small sometimes.
So, what happened then?
Well, I slapped her around a couple times. Nothing bad, mind, just so she knew I meant business. She deserved it, talking back and telling me what to do.
And what happened then?
She had the nerve to hit me back. She's a little one, but turned out she's got a bit of power in her. She split my lip, and well, that was it for me. I wasn't going to put up with that from a woman, even if her dad was made of money. So I'd have dropped it off right quick. I told him it's over, because she's nothing but trouble.
So, you said it was over, but Mr. Curtis actually paid you money for your trouble.
Well, yeah, but nothing I didn't have coming.
Your Honor, I am done with this witness.
Mr. Hoffman, you may leave the stand, and we will break for lunch. Members of the jury, you are reminded not to discuss anything you heard this morning with anyone else. When we come back, the defense will have its turn. Mr. Nash, please be ready to go at 1 p.m. sharp this afternoon.
Hear ye, hear ye! All rise! The Superior Court of Orange County, North Carolina is now in session. Judge Alfred Billings presiding. Please be seated.
Mr. Nash, please call your first witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Allie Miller to the stand.
Oh, Ellie.
Oh,
Al.
Hey, Al.
Hey, Mr. Case. Oh, ice cream. I don't know what we're gonna do. Look at y'all together for the first time in
Oh, yeah.
Left hand. Raise your right. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
No, it's got to be I do.
I do. Gee, it's just like getting married.
Please just state your name and occupation.
My name is Allie Miller, but everybody calls me Al, and I work at James Pharmacy.
Mr. Miller, you have a full-time job at James Pharmacy.
Yep, I'm the soda jerk, and I work 6 days a week from 11 to 6.
And are you familiar with Miss Curtis?
Yep, I wish she'd been here when I was in school. I might have learned something.
You have a good view of the street from behind the counter, right now.
Yep, I see everything. All the people coming, going. I even see you walk by at times.
That's fine, Al. Do you remember, were you working the day that Mr. Campbell was killed on April 14th?
Yep, I was working away.
And do you remember seeing Miss Campbell there on April 14th?
Yep, she'd come in just like Mr. Cates say, and Mr. Campbell talked to her.
So your testimony agrees with Mr. Cates?
Yep, sort of, I guess.
Al, please tell the court how your testimony differs from Mr. Cates' testimony.
Well, Mr. Cates was standing near the back door, and I was standing near the front window. And that's when I saw Mr. Campbell put his arm halfway around Miss Curtis, and Mr. Cates would not have seen that.
So what did Miss Curtis do?
Well, she sort of walked out of it, you know how women do, but she walked to the door. She seemed pretty upset, and that's when Mr. Cates came up from my right. No, it was my left. No, it was my right. It was my right.
May the court take notice that Al Miller has held up his right hand.
I bet that boy even knows how to tie his own shoes.
Willa, he's trying his best.
No, he's trying all right.
Now, Al, don't you pay any attention to what they're saying, all right?
Al, please continue with what you saw.
Well, Mr. Cates asked her if she was okay, and that's about it.
So you said that's about it. Does that mean that's all?
Yup, Mr. Campbell told her he'd deal with her later. She left, and he put his toothpaste back on the shelf and left.
Is that all you saw?
Nope, Miss Curtis come back again. Mr. Cates was in the storeroom, so he wouldn't see Miss Curtis come back.
And what did Miss Curtis do then?
Well, she asked me if I'd seen Sonny that day. I told her no, it was a school day. I didn't expect to see him, but she seemed really upset.
Is that all now?
Nope. I asked Miss Curtis. She wanted me to tell Sonny something if he came in. She didn't say nothing, but shook her head no and left, really worried.
Did you see Mayor Tyler that day?
Oh, well, that mayor came in that afternoon wanting his usual Coca-Cola. He was looking as smug as could be and lording it over everybody. He'd asked me if his wife had been in earlier to pick up some liver pills for him.
Go on.
Well, I had told the mayor his wife had been in earlier, but left without the liver pills. And then for some reason, I told the mayor that I'd seen his wife and Harold Campbell together at the Colonial Inn just the week before.
For some reason, what would that reason be?
Well, that mayor, he sort of irritated me, looking at me like I was some kind of cow turd. Yep, he irritated me.
Well, is it true then about them being together?
Yup.
Why do you think that?
Well, I was standing outside the inn having a smoke, and Harold Campbell came out. He was putting his hat on, gave me one of those sly winks. And then Miss Tyler, she come out and saw me, and she blushed up to her eyeballs, I tell you. They both went in different directions, but seemed kind of suspicious to me.
And how did the mayor take your news?
Oh, he got redder than a stuffed tomato on a skewer, I tell you. But I'd have my fun, so I told them they weren't exactly together. I don't know what was going on in that inn that day, but that Harold Campbell, he sure did get around.
And what happened then?
Well, I told the mayor he could find his wife down at the Eno by now, and he hightailed it out of there.
Towards the Eno?
Towards the Eno.
No further questions.
Mr. Graham, any questions for this nitwit?
Oh, yes, Mr. Miller. Just see two of them, Virginia Curtis and Harold Campbell. You see two of them arguing in your stove?
Well, she's a sweet sort. He's kind of a bully. They've exchanged words a time or two in the past, but she pretty much held her own, I guess. Living alone and all. You gotta do that.
I understand she comes into your store for a soda after school from time to time.
Yep, she's a regular. Like her chocolate sodas with vanilla ice cream. I made them special for her. She'd smile at me and, well, it sure made me want to be nice to her.
Well, maybe she treated you differently. Or maybe you treated her differently.
Well, gosh, Mr. Graham, if she's giving you one of them looks, it'd make you want to make her a special soda, too.
Oh, bless your heart.
Son, get your feet off my bench.
Would you say that you sweet on Miss Curtis? You wouldn't want to see her get convicted for murder now, would you?
Oh, no, not at all.
No further question. Put your feet down, boy.
Allie, you may leave stand.
You know, I always like that badge. It's always so
Any
shiny.
questions?
I'll see you later, Don. You coming, Mr. K? Yeah, come on.
Mr. Gray, Mr. Nash, please. It's kind of, get your witnesses in order next time. Proceed.
I call Mrs. Arthur Tyler to the stand.
Here we go again.
See what she has to say now.
Yes, I think she's in trouble.
Shifty eyes. I gotta tell you, she can wear that thing in July.
Mrs. Tyler, I want to remind you that you're still under oath. We have testimony from Allie that he saw you and Mr. Campbell leaving the Colonial Inn together. What were you doing there? It was in the afternoon.
Objection. What's the basis for this line of questioning?
Overruled. Please go on, Mr. Nash.
Your Honor, Mrs. Tyler already testified that she had a previous relationship. Mrs. Tyler already testified she was at the scene of the crime. Our previous witness testified that Mr. Campbell and her were at the Colonial Inn a week before. This goes to motive and opportunity.
I agree. Please go on.
Mrs. Tyler, please answer the question. Were you at the Colonial Inn with Mr. Campbell?
That Allie Miller, he doesn't know everything. A lady can simply have lunch with her friends, can't she?
Mrs. Tyler, aren't you being a bit evasive? Didn't you know him in high school? Exhibit D, the Hillsborough High School yearbook. I looked over it during the lunch break. Mrs. Tyler, whose picture is that?
Why, that's me.
And who is in that picture?
I'm not sure.
Isn't that Harold Campbell? Didn't you know him at that time?
Yes, I knew him.
Well, Mrs. Tyler, I noticed there's a lot of messages from friends of his from back when you went to school with him. And I noticed there's a message from you to him. Could you read that to the court, please?
Objection. Yeah, I don't see how this yearbook continues to be relevant in this case.
Your Honor, Mr. Graham introduced this yearbook as evidence, so it's fair game. So
Mr. Nash, this had better be good. I'll overrule the objection, but watch your step. You may continue.
Mrs. Tyler, please read the note.
My sweet Scotty, I will always remember what we meant to each other. You are my one true love, Delilah.
So, Scotty is Harold Campbell.
Yes.
So the Campbell family moved back to Hillsborough about a year ago. Did you and Scotty, or Mr. Campbell, renew your relationship from high school?
I would never. Yeah, I only saw him in the store and on the street sometimes, and sometimes he'd give me a certain smile, and I would nod back, but that is all. Like I said, I'm the mayor's wife, and we don't run the same social circles.
Well, I'd like to return to your statement about going down to the shack. Why would you go down to a place like that? A person of your stature, what reason would you have to go down there?
It was our place once upon a time.
You and Mr. Tyler?
Oh, no. Oh, Arthur would never step foot in a place like that. Arthur only likes houses that harken back to the Revolutionary War. No. Back in high school, that was our place. For Scotty and me. My mother didn't approve of him, and we had to meet back in secret then. And that empty shack became our little place. It was our place. I didn't care what my mother thought. That little place became a home to us, a home for our love. And then it was our place. And then she ran him out of town and said he wasn't good enough for me. And I'm sorry.
I'm not sure how this is relevant.
Move along, Mr. Nash.
Well, knowing of your history with Mr. Campbell, how did it strike you seeing him at the shack with Miss Curtis?
There she was, walking out of that shack with flowers blooming all around, with his just red clay before. She acted like it was her home. That should have been me there. I should have had a home that I loved, not some drafty old mansion. And I just couldn't understand, how could she be happy, a nobody with nothing?
So on the day in question, you went down to the Eno because you thought you heard something about an argument between them. And you saw Mr. Campbell there.
Yeah.
How did he act when he saw you?
Like, acted like he didn't even see me. I couldn't believe it. My mother always said that he'd wind up working at the mill. I guess she was right. Just not right, not my type after all.
Well, let's get back to the day it happened.
He came down to the shack and he started yelling, and then he started yelling at me. And he said, you don't belong here. He said, why don't you mind your own business? He was shaking his fist at me. Well, he couldn't talk to me like that. I'm the mayor's wife. I just looked at him and I said, you're nothing but dirt, Mr. Campbell. You're nothing but dirt. I mean, Scotty couldn't ignore me for that Curtis woman. He couldn't just push me away.
And did you see your husband after the altercation?
No.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Greene, would you like to question this witness?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. Mr. Tyler, when did you tell your husband about that altercation?
I didn't see Arthur until sometime. By that time, Harold Campbell was dead.
No further questions.
Mrs. Mayor, you may leave the stand now. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Mayor Tyler back to the stand.
I knew it. I knew they were going to call him again. All that walking around town, I knew he was up to something.
So, Mayor Tyler, Alan Miller just justified he saw your wife and Harold Campbell at the Colonial Inn together, and they had a previous relationship. We heard from your wife also that her and Harold Campbell had a previous relationship together in high school, and it involved that shack. Is that the real reason you went down to the banks of the Eno that day?
No, that's not true. I told you how I happened to be in the vicinity of the Eno. It was about 4 o'clock, and I had just left my office. Sometimes I take a little refreshment over at the drugstore just after work, particularly if I've had a lot to deal with during the day. I'd been dealing with a lot of riffraff who were objecting to a new law we just passed, keeping the races separate down at the horse track.
Well, were you infuriated when Allen Miller suggested that your wife and Harold Campbell had a romantic relationship in the past?
That Allen Miller mouthed off about anything. Thinks he's entertaining you when you'd rather just drink your Coke in peace.
So you paid no attention to what Ali said. He testified that you hightailed it on down outside after your wife.
That's his memory, not mine.
Well, was it coincidence, Mayor Tyler, that your very next stop was the shack on the Eno?
Don't pester me about that shack! Delilah only had to mention one time about how she and her Scotty would go there in high school, and I hated the place. Should have been torn down a long time ago.
Did you know Scotty was Harold Campbell?
I hadn't previously put that together.
But in the afternoon you did.
I can't recall what I put together when. Allie didn't say your wife and Scotty are down there by the Eno. I hadn't heard Delilah mention Scotty's name in years. I told her I didn't want to hear about it.
Well, why did you go after your wife? Did you expect to find her with Harold Campbell? What would you have done if you found them together?
I figured I'd go down there and give him a piece of my mind. Well, Delilah means the world to me.
We know you love your wife, Mary. But did you see her? Did you see Mrs. Tyler?
All I saw was a man's body on the ground.
You said you couldn't identify him. Did you know it was Harold Campbell?
I couldn't see his face, but I had a good notion of who it was.
Is that why you didn't help him? Because it was Harold Campbell?
That had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
No further questions.
Mr. Graham, any more questions for Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I want to make this clear as day for the court. You did not lay a hand on Harold Campbell.
No, I didn't.
You did not yell at him.
No, I did not.
You did not hit him or abuse him in any way.
I swear on the Bible, I didn't touch him. I didn't have that hatchet in my hand, not even once.
You did not touch that man. You had no prior reason to be angry with him.
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor, tell me, what were you wearing on that day?
It was a warm day, and I like to leave my jacket at the office if I think my walk's going to take a while, so I had on a white shirt and dark trousers.
A white shirt. And did anyone, especially Sheriff Hosgood, notice any blood on your white shirt?
Certainly not.
No further questions.
Your Honor, I have one more question, please.
No objection.
Mr. Mayor, did the sheriff ask to see the jacket you wore that day that you said you left at the office?
No, and he had no need to. I told you I left it at the office.
No more questions.
You may step down, Mr. Mayor.
My goodness! Anyone could have done it!
Mr. Nash, your next and I hope final witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Virginia Curtis to the stand.
Well, This is a surprise. I wonder how she's gonna explain her way out of this. Oh, this is gonna be some fun now.
You swear to tell the truth?
I don't
the
think
truth,
she
and
can
nothing
take
but the
much
truth.
more of this.
See.
Y'all better be quiet or old Judge Billings gonna throw you both out of your seat program.
And you ride along with them, Willa Sweeney. Your husband knew you skipping work to be here today. Miss Curtis, please tell us your name and what you do.
I'm Virginia Curtis, teacher at the Hillsborough Elementary School.
Miss Curtis, Virginia, how long have you lived in Hillsborough?
I moved here about 5 years ago from Durham. I didn't very much like the feelings against the Negro race in that town, and I thought Hillsborough would be better.
And is it?
Not exactly, Mr. Nash. It's different from there. I wouldn't say much better in some ways, but at least here, I can choose to use my own time to teach the colored children who live here without fear for my life.
And you like that? You like teaching?
Yes, sir. It's my calling. It means these children, not just the colored ones, but the white ones too, may have a better life just because they have some education.
Well, Virginia, you seem like a thoughtful person. How do you like it here? Have you made any friends?
I've tried, but it's been hard. They're pretty stuck in their ways here, too. You're not old Hillsborough people. They don't pay much attention to you. Even if you are smarter than they are. Maybe because you're smarter than they are.
Well, we've heard a lot about the shack. Oh, what does it mean to you? What do you do there?
The shack, as you call it, it's an anchor in a way for me. There I can go and watch the Eno. I'm free there to teach whomever I want, whenever I want, and I can put my back to this town and look into the future.
What is your relationship to Sonny Campbell?
I wouldn't exactly call it a relationship. He was one of my students. I knew he was struggling in school, so I wanted to help him, and he was just having such a tough time, and he's pretty big for his age, so some of the smaller kids were afraid of him.
Well, on the day in question, we heard evidence that Harold Campbell accosted you at the James Pharmacy. Can you tell us what happened?
I wouldn't say accosted. Mr. Campbell was a brute, always pushing himself at me whenever he would see me, and he didn't like me spending time with Sonny, and just that day he was telling me he was pulling Sonny from school to make him go work at the mill.
And how did that make you feel?
Well, he was saying it to get at me, to make me angry, and he did. Sonny's a good boy and has some potential, and this town. This town can really put you in a slot when they just assume you are dumb or uneducated or poor or beneath them. And then you're just stuck in that slot for life. And I wanted to see if I could help him break out of that.
And what happened that day at the shack?
Well, I was there, cutting brush by the shack. Sonny and Mrs. Tyler came down. Sonny was mad. I guess his mama told him he had to quit school, so we were talking. Then Mr. Campbell ran down. He started yelling at Sonny and at me and even at Mrs. Tyler, and he started shaking Sonny real hard, so I went over and tried to grab at him, but I just wasn't much use because he was such a big man, and I just started yelling at him to just stop hurting his little boy, and he did say some awful things to Mrs. Tyler and told her to leave. I mean, he was really yelling at her, so she stumbled off, and I don't really blame her. But Sonny took off when his father yelled at him, so Mr. Campbell turned to me and grabbed me. And he picked me up by the wrist and started shaking me, so I kicked at him and he dropped me, and that's when I ran into the shack and tried to block the door.
And how long did you stay in the shack?
I'm not sure. I was terrified, you see. I thought this man was going to kill me. I mean, I guess it was when it was quiet and I couldn't hear anything else. I just remember opening the door. There was Mr. Campbell's body lying on the ground, and when I reached out to see if he was still alive, I think that's when I got blood on me.
And how long were you standing there before the sheriff came up?
I mean, it's hard to say. I was in shock. There I was staring at the father of one of my students lying in a pool of blood. It could have been 1 minute, it could have been 5. Who would know something like that?
Now the sheriff said he found your fingerprints on the handle of the axe. Do you know how they got there?
I used that axe, that hatchet, to work on the shack. It's my hatchet.
Virginia, did you kill that man?
No.
No more questions.
Mr. Graham, would you like to question the defendant?
Miss Curtis, you picked a fight with a man. You run away. Next thing you know, he's dead. You got blood all over you.
I know it sounds bad, but that's what happened. I did not kill Harold Campbell.
Coroner said his report the killer was left-handed. Miss Curtis, I saw you running up to your attorney with your left hand. Are you, in fact, left-handed?
Objection. Pure conjecture.
Overruled. I'll let Miss Curtis answer.
Yes, I am left-handed, but I never harmed a man.
The sheriff said he didn't see any bruises on you. Did he hurt you? You haven't.
I may have had a few on my wrists that more frightened me, I guess.
You're frightened. You ran away from Mr. Campbell. You sure you didn't do anything else? Kick him, maybe? Mr. Hopper said you hit him. You certainly weren't afraid of him. Were you afraid of Mr. Campbell coming after you?
I'm not sure.
You had to get away, right? Was there a lock on that shack?
No, sir.
No lock. And you thought he'd leave you alone? And how far away from the body were you?
A few feet.
You weren't more than 10 feet away from that body. You tell me you didn't hear anything? And what about your relationship with Mr. Campbell? He certainly made himself available when you were in town. He was at your home. Did you encourage him? Were you in fact sweet on him?
No, sir, never. He was the father of a student, that's all.
Are you sure? Look at you. Look at you. Pretty young thing, no husband. And spending all your time fixing up Harold Campbell's love shack. You tell me there ain't nothing between y'all?
No, sir.
In testimony today, we heard y'all were all over town. At the pharmacy, at your home, and you had words about Sonny. And Miss Pippa and Sonny both testified that Campbell put his hands on you. And we know what happens when a man puts his hands on you. We know what happens. Were you angry? Were you angry something people at school?
Of course I was angry.
Did you hit him with the hatchet?
No, I did not.
Were you mad enough to lash out at that man?
No, I mean, of course, maybe, I don't.
Or maybe it was something else. Maybe you wanted something for yourself. Or maybe you wanted Mr. Campbell for yourself.
Stop it. It was me. No, it was hers would have never wanted my father. It was me who done it. I killed him.
No, Sonny,
I was hiding behind the shack. Paul was holding her up by her hands. Her feet weren't even on the ground. She's so little and gentle, and he can get so mean he gets crazy mad. He was yelling at her, how he hated her. She kicked him right into the shack, but I knew he'd get her. I just had to stop him. The hatchet was there, so I just picked it up and swung it at him and hit him in the arm. I didn't mean to hurt him bad. I just wanted him to go away. And that's when he grabbed me. So I hit him again. He fell to the ground and his head was all bloody.
Go on, son.
He was going to take my world away. He was going to take her away from me. He looked at me and said, my son, but it was too late.
I knew Miss Curtis was innocent. I just knew it.
That poor boy, that poor mother.
This can't be right. That boy is covering something up.
Order. Mr. Nash, what we have here is a mistrial. Mr. Graham, I'm afraid this case is dismissed. Bailiff, please take this young man into custody.
Miss Curtis, you were always so kind to me. You made me feel smart, and I was a somebody. I just wish my pa had done that. I never meant to hurt anybody. It just all went wrong.
Well, I always thought she was guilty. My husband did too.
She's guilty, all right. You know, she got that boy to cover up for her. I mean, what do we really know about her? All we know is that she snuck into that shack to teach those colored children. She'll never fit in here.
She did want to join the garden club.
As if they'd have her.